Hello. Today we are going to do a very interesting demonstration, and that demonstration involves making rubber. So if you're too cheap to go out and buy rubber bands, we will show you how to do it at home. It is a pretty safe experiment if done correctly. So first, what I'm going to do is describe some of the history of this. First of all, from the experiment making the blob or the slime, we talked about polymerization, how you cross-link small links of a chain together to make a polymer or a long chain molecule that has very different properties from the original material when it's in small link form. Today we're going to do the same thing, except we're going to use different chemicals, and we are going to make rubber, actual rubber, to show you how it was done. The person who was very famous for trying to make artificial rubber in the latter years of his life was Thomas Alva Edison. And Edison, who lived in Florida near St. Petersburg in the last years of his life, tried many different ways to make artificial rubber. I mean, we had to depend on Southeast Asia for its rubber trees. And in fact, those were the only places that rubber trees were grown to get our latex, which is what comes out as that white syrup that comes out of the rubber trees. So we were politically dependent on that part of the world. The big push was on by Henry Ford and others to make artificial rubber. Edison set up a lab again on the outskirts of St. Petersburg, and he tried, as it was said, 10,000 different ways to make artificial rubber. He grew rubber plants there on his plantation and so forth. I had a lab right across the street from his house that he worked in. It was not as elaborate as Menlo Park in New Jersey, where he invented the light bulb, or actually made a commercially viable light bulb, let's put it that way. But it was a very convenient lab for him. And after trying 10,000 different ways of making artificial rubber and not succeeding, he was asked by a newspaper reporter, "Well, Mr. Edison, what have you learned by failing these 10,000 ways?" And he said right back, "Well, I know I learned 10,000 different ways that you cannot make rubber." And that was a famous quote from him. So how do we do it? Well, we're going to need some basic supplies. If you want to try this at home, this is what you're going to need. You're going to need a pitcher with some water in it. You're going to need a plastic spoon, and a plastic knife would work well. A little foam or paper plastic bowl. You're going to need a jar of citric acid. You can buy this in a health food store, and it's not very expensive at all. It's a powder. The latex. You're going to need some liquid latex. I got this from a local costume supply, magician supply, theatrical supply store, and they had it in quantity. You can get it different colors. I got the white or clear. You also can use some food coloring. I got some food coloring at the supermarket, and that's pretty much it. So on my little script here, I'm going to see what we need to do. First, we need to make a bath of citric acid. So we pour in some water. I'm going to do it over here, like so. And then I'm going to take several spoons. I think that's a little too much water. Well, maybe not. I'll use a lot of citric acid. You just open it up, and you take some spoons of it and dump it in. In fact, I'm going to try and carefully pour more in because I want to use a fair amount of it. There. And I'll get rid of that citric acid so we don't have to deal with it. And I will use the spoon to stir it up. You just mix it up. The ratio is not critical. Just want to have a pile of citric acid powder in there, and I'll put this forward. By the way, you do need a paper towel or something to clean up the mess that you're going to make, so that your spouse or significant other doesn't get very angry with you. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is pour the white latex. I've already poured out a little medicine cup of it, and I'm going to pour it into the citric acid mix. Just right there in one little place. I want to use all of it. The latex mixture is not cheap. What they do with it in the theater is they paint it onto the actors' faces, and then they paint it with citric acid, and it solidifies, and then they can paint the actual face. Now watch what I'm doing. I'm actually dunking this around in the citric acid with my hands. By the way, if you're allergic to latex, and a lot of people are, especially some of the kids, if you have a class of 30, you might have 2 or 3 that are, so you have to be very careful at letting them do this, and yourself. And you can't even put on latex gloves to protect your hands, because guess what? It's made out of latex. Now, I'm squishing this around to get the excess liquid out, and I'm putting it into a ball at the same time. So let's see if we can have a ball with this. I'll fold it in my hands to make a nice little ball, and I got a little rubber ball here. Boom, it bounces. It actually bounces. Let me squish the stuff out, and I can let it dry up for an hour or so just to get the water out, but you get the idea. In fact, I'll use my paper towel. The wetter it is, the less it will bounce. So once it gets nice and consistent, boom, you can drop it, see? And it bounces. Not great. I didn't make a perfectly round ball, but that's how you do it. Now, for my next demonstration, we're going to use an empty bathroom toilet paper holder. Now, what are we going to do with that? Well, I've cut off the bottom of a larger foam cup, and I poured some liquid latex in here. I'm going to need my bowl, and I'll get rid of this latex bottle so that you can see better. And what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to take the good side, this is the good side, and dunk it into the liquid latex. There's about a 1/4 inch or so of liquid latex in there, as you can see. And then I'm going to dunk it a few times, get some, and right into the citric acid. So it will set it up. And I dunk it a little bit, a few more times. And now what I can do is literally, if I'm careful at this, I can pull off, if I do it carefully, which I'm not doing carefully, but you can get the idea. I can pull off that liquid latex, and now it is in the form of a very crude rubber band. And I messed up because I took my rubber band and folded it around when I did this, but I have a rubber band now that can actually be shot. I didn't want it to come out this way, but it did. I was going to put it around something like a pen, which I could still do. I got a rubber band. But now I'm tempted to shoot this across the room. Let's see, what should I aim at? That's got liquid in it, so I really shouldn't do that. This has got... I hope that was water. I really do. But I'm going to put the target right here and shoot it with my rubber band that I just made. And I missed at this range. At 10 inches, I missed. Oh well, you can do it a different way. Now, another thing that I'm going to do is use the food coloring. I don't want to make just any old rubber. So I put a few drops of, I chose red, food coloring in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the rest of my unused latex from the other cup, waste not, want not, and that goes in there. And now I stir it up so that I can, with the knife, that's what I use the little plastic knife for, is to stir. But you could use anything. I like using plastic utensils because you can throw them away. And so now I've got a nice reddish, light red mixture of, I'll put this in here, the liquid latex. Now I'm going to take what is known as a puffed cheese doodle, and I'm going to dip it in that liquid latex. I've never done this before. As you can see, I have a red latex covered, at least the bottom part of the cheese doodle, and now I'm going to dunk it in the citric acid polymerizing solution to see what I get. And what I get is a piece of rubber from the other one. Let's try that again. I get actually a sleeve. I tuck my cheese doodle in here, and after I dip my cheese doodle in here, I dip it into the citric acid solution, make it set up real good. And now what have I got? Oh, I've got a latex covered cheese doodle. And if I pull this off correctly, which I can't because it's all too sticking, the cheese doodle is actually dissolving. But I get here a little hollow cast, if you will, of the end of the cheese doodle. And so you can do all kinds of manufacturing things with the liquid latex. Let me think of anything else that I could do. Oh, I know, I've got my original rubber ball, which is white. I'm going to dip part of that in this mixture and drop it in there. I'm just playing. So what am I going to get? Well, I'm going to get a two-tone ball. And I'm going to dip that and see how that comes out. I'm also going to take my cup runneth over, and I will pour in some plain water, swirl it around, and take out my two-colored ball. There we go. I got a nice two-colored ball. Of course, it's all set up now. I should have kneaded it in my hands before, but it bounces really nice, and you can make it any size. So I showed you how to make a rubber band, a multi-tone rubber ball, a rubber covered cheese doodle, and anything else you can think of that you want to make. Like you could make that rubber mask for your face and go out on Halloween and have a wonderful trick-or-treat.